Very good morning to everyone, and especially very good morning to our special speaker, Shri Ajith Kumar, Sukumaran ji, and extremely privileged to have you here on this very special day. As we know that this maritime sector is moving very fast and the changes are taking place at exponential phase. And this is a time that our faculty also required to cope up with the various happenings in this field. And I think we have the right person to talk on this subject and enlighten us, all our staff from particularly Indian Maritime University, the very specific issues which are current to this topic. And without much of ado, once again extend a warm welcome to Shri Sukumaran, and over to you, sir. Thank you very much for sparing your time and being with us. Actually, we thought that we'll receive you in person, but we hope that we'll get an opportunity very soon. Thank you once again, and all the best, sir.
Thank you very much. In fact, it is my honor and privilege to address such an elite gathering of academicians whose collective knowledge and wisdom could be definitely comparable with that of the entire maritime spectrum of the country. From the personal ground, I have been seeing the evolution of Indian Maritime University from its initial stages itself with great pleasure and great pride. Especially in the last 4 to 5 years, particularly under the leadership of my most revered boss, Dr. Malini Shankar. Thank you very much for inviting me, Dr. Shipu, to this function, Dr. Rajeshwari and the campus director and all others for having arranged this. I feel my face is not so attractive for you to keep you engaged for 1 hour or so. So better I will switch to something interesting for you through a PowerPoint presentation. Hope it is visible and moving.
Yes, sir, visible moving.
Thank you very much. Let's start with a clean slate. I belong to a family of teachers. My parents both were teachers. In fact, my grandfather was a teacher. My in-laws were teachers. My wife was a teacher. My sister, in fact, is a teacher. So I come from a family of teachers. And I believe what I am today is the values which I received and seen from them. I have the greatest of regards for every teacher and often envy for them their opportunity to constantly engage with younger generation, to see their energy and the level of enthusiasm. So let me start with greetings to all the faculty members, online and offline here, for being here. I start with a quote from Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. Teaching is a very noble profession that shapes the character, caliber, and future of an individual. If the people remember me as a good teacher, that will be the biggest honor for me. And I feel each one of you in this group are so honored and so fortunate. Now coming to the today's session, I'm not an academician. I'm not a great orator or speaker to keep you engaged. I do not have the depth of knowledge which many of you have in various areas. I'm just a technocrat, rather an administrator. I don't call me bureaucrat because I never felt I'm a bureaucrat. So when Dr. Shipu called me for this, I was a bit confused. What should I talk to such a learned gathering who in many areas could be much more informed than me? But fortunately, he has given me a clear mandate that first one, what should a maritime faculty look for? Then the latest developments and the new challenges which a faculty, a maritime faculty should be aware of. The third one is the maritime training compared with certificate of competency regime, whether there is a gap, because definitely the certificate of competency, particularly for the seafarers, matters a lot. But instead of going section by section, I have rather gone to a single integrated presentation, the maritime education and training for future industry needs. I will try to touch upon whatever the advice from Dr. Shipu, the areas to be covered in various degrees. I don't think I will be able to cover everything in full spectrum, but in various degrees I may touch upon to that. Some areas it could be a bit elaborate, some areas it could be a little shorter. So I expect to complete my presentation maybe around 40-45 minutes maximum. And if anything further is to be elaborated in any section, if I'm able to do it, definitely I'm happy to do it. But if you feel some areas getting extended beyond your scope, please excuse me, because we can't do much about it. Because it is not a physical interaction to see how you are responding to me. Let me start with a small story. South Korea, 18th August 2009. The country was witnessing an unusual funeral of their former president, Daichung. It was something perhaps definitely Korea and perhaps most of the other countries may not have witnessed. And if you see who is Daichung, we have to go 1998 when he was taking over as the president of the country. North Korea versus South Korea, decades-long war, in fact, completely rattled South Korea. The economy was in doldrums. The GDP was in negative figures. Unemployment and even poverty was in the highest level. But as soon as he took over as the president of the country, he called his industrial captains and passed his decree that he wanted his country to be the leader of shipbuilding in 10 years' time. Believe me, in 2004 itself, 7 to 8 years' time, he had his presidential dream realized. His country was capturing more than 40% of the shipbuilding orders across the globe. The GDP was growing in double figures. In places like Ulsan and Mokpo, the entire communities were involved in shipbuilding. And today, it is history. What Korea has done in shipbuilding and what shipbuilding has done to that country is something, lessons to be learned for any global economy or for any global leader, because this is an example what a visionary leader can do to a country. But how could he do this? Because he himself was a ship owner. He knew the potential of the shipping. He knew that the ship is not only belonging to the seafarers or the ship owners. It is an institution by itself. From design, the construction and repairs, ownership and management, chartering and brokerage, financing and insurance, ship recycling, ports, customs and immigration, cargo handling and logistics, ship handlers and stevedoring, maintenance and maritime training and education, classification societies, maritime administration. I consciously missed out one, the seafarers. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what shipping is all about. So, if I'm asked what a faculty, a maritime faculty should look for, my first and simple answer could be a maritime faculty must look beyond ships and seafarers to understand the maritime ecosystem and develop the human capital needed to sustain and strengthen it. A few years back, I think maybe some of you might have been there, I was called for a talk in IMU Chennai campus. The topic given to me was the employment or the scenario for the maritime professionals. The first condition I put across was that I will not talk anything, the opportunities on the ships. That means about the engineering, the nautical, and not even about the naval architecture. But the opportunities and the scenarios which is beyond that. Believe me, if some of you were there, my talk went on for around 1.5 hours. And never ever I touched upon the topics of seafaring or the naval architecture or the marine engineering, but the opportunities beyond that. I think a maritime faculty, particularly that of a lead maritime university, should not get confused by their mandate or their role. It is not for creating only the seafarers to take a ship from point A to point B, but to have and to develop a maritime ecosystem for the country. And from there, I will just touch upon a newspaper article of 7th July 2026. AICT shuts down 58 engineering colleges in India in 1 year. And that is not enough. 950 technical courses were discontinued. And 100 plus architecture colleges were shut down. 300 plus management institute just vanished. 295 B.Ed colleges lost recognition only in Maharashtra. and Bar Council has frozen approval of new law colleges. And it is estimated that more than 44% of the engineering seats today remain vacant. So, ladies and gentlemen, is it because of the lack of employment? ACT pointed out poor quality and poor enrollment ratio. But is it because of employment or the lack of employability for the products which come out of these institutes? And there is a fact, the maritime, which nobody talks about. In my understanding, many of the institutes, it is less than 35% of the state utilization. Even for certified seafarer today, some of the categories at least, the waiting period for next ship is more than 10 months. Ladies and gentlemen, unlike engineering or management, the maritime crisis has not entered into public discourse, making it harder to diagnose, address, or reform. But where are we going wrong? The problem is not with engineering. It is not with architecture. It is not with management. It is not with education. It is not with law. It is not even with maritime. Simply because the problem is with our education system that failed to evolve with the needs of industry and the society. Ladies and gentlemen, the modern ships are entirely different what our generation used to engage. Some of them are worth more over 250 million, longer than Empire State Building, and is as tall as a 20-story building. If you stack their containers up, it could reach to nearly 7,500 Eiffel Towers. And if you unload into trucks, the traffic could stretch for 60 miles. Powered by main engine of even 100 megawatt and above, the most powerful machines ever built by humans. A single LNG carrier, ultra-large container cargo with billions of dollars. An LNG carrier can transport enough energy in one voyage to cater the energy needs of a major city while maintaining its cargo at negative minus 162 degrees centigrade throughout the voyage. And today, not only that, they are technological marvels. The bridge of a modern vessel resembles an aircraft cockpit and a digital command center comparable with the most advanced technological environments anywhere in the world. Radars, electronic charts, satellite navigation, SIS, VDR, the weather routing, the increasingly advanced decision support technologies. A modern ship is nothing short of a technology center of the day. It generates enormous amount of operational data through thousands of sensors and data points, continuously monitoring engine, fuel consumption, emission, cargo, navigation, machinery conditions, and safety systems. They increasingly use artificial intelligence, predictive maintenance, digital twins, remote monitoring, and autonomous navigation technologies. And in other words, ships are changing. Technology is changing. Fuels and propulsion systems are changing. Even maritime regulations are trying to catch up. And definitely the skills demanded by the maritime industry also is changing. So that comes to the fundamental question for a maritime trainer or the educator of today. Am I teaching my students for the ships of the past or preparing them for the maritime industry of the future? Ladies and gentlemen, in today's maritime education, perhaps more than in many other disciplines, a faculty member must continuously update his knowledge and keep pace with rapidly evolving technologies. Those who stop learning will soon find themselves teaching the past to students who must operate the future. And the fortunate part is that people like you are engaging with the next generation or the future generations, at least in many areas, who are much updated than you. I will just tell a personal perspective from my end. I don't know, I may not have told in many forums, but the fact that I left the government service few years ahead of my time itself. Not that I was fed up with the government establishments, but I felt I can do something more which is satisfying me if I come out. Because I have been engaged as the mentor of over a dozen startups quite some time, and I felt that is one of the most engaging thing I have done in entire life. Not because of any monetary benefits, but because of the intellectual contribution which I get from the younger generation with whom I engage every day. From that perspective, I feel you are much more fortunate to me than myself, because you, on day-to-day basis, had the opportunity for decades to engage with younger generation. With that, let me come to some of the new challenges. I think in shipping, everything is a challenge, but I will just touch upon a few. 23rd March 2021, the Great Suez Blockade. The Suez Canal, the world's busiest sea route, was blocked for 6 days by Ever Given, an all-Indian crew container ship that ran aground in the canal. Egyptian authorities attributed technical or human errors as the cause of the incident. Ladies and gentlemen, this was the most or the costliest human error in shipping and shipping history till that time. 383 ships stranded, holding up an estimated 9.6 billion of trade each day. Stranded 3.3 million tons of cargo an hour, or $6.7 million a minute. This single human error on the ship could have caused the global trade between 6 billion to 10 billion a week and reduce the annual trade growth by 0.2 to 0.4 percentage points. And 29th March, its Suez Canal chairman, Osama Rabi. The canal's revenue were taking a 14 million to 15 million hit for each day of the blockage. With the ships getting bigger and bigger, we need to have to review our strategies to safely deal with them. Ships getting bigger and bigger. Again, on 21st June 2024, National Transportation Safety Board Chair of United States, Jennifer Comenti. It is not the bridge getting larger. It is not the canals getting wider. It is the ships that are getting bigger and bigger. Something similar. Ladies and gentlemen, she was sick, but referring to the Great Baltimore Bridge collapse of 26 March 2024. The state of Maryland estimates the cost of rebuilding the bridge at approximately 1.2 billion and estimated another 1.7 billion in supply chain disruptions affecting various industries reliant on the port. The incident is projected to be the largest maritime insurance claim in history, potentially reaching 3 billion, influencing future insurance premiums and policies. And a few weeks back, the US State Department reached a 2.2 billion settlement with the Grace Ocean Private Limited and Synergy Maritime Group, the owners and operators of Dali, to cover the federal expenses for cleanup and temporary channel creation. So, ladies and gentlemen, I put before you the first challenge of the modern shipping, the economies of scale of the ships of today. And if you see the Titanic, the largest ship in the world when launched, measuring 269 meters. It featured the latest technology of its time, including a sophisticated electrical system and a wireless telegraphy system. Titanic had a double bottom hull and watertight compartments, a design intended to make it unsinkable. The Titanic's first class facilities were opulent, rivaling the best hotels on land. But ladies and gentlemen, if it is placed before some of the biggest container ships of today, or even some of the cruise liner ships of today, it is not even 1/3 of it. Modern merchant ships are monumental in size compared to the Titanic. While the Titanic was a marvel of its time, the largest ships today are engineering wonders with vastly superior capacity, technology, and safety standards. If the Titanic were placed next to one of the today's giants, it would appear less than 1/3 of its size. So, which is the largest ship in the world today. I'm sure most of you heard the answer. It is MSC Irina, carrying more than 23,485 containers at one time. On 9th June 2025, the vessel arrived on Indian port, Vizhinjam. And proudly to say, the vessel was under the command of our Indian master, Captain Willie Anthony. Not only that, the entire 21 crew of the ship were Indians. Not only Irina, most of the larger and complex ships of today in the world fleet are manned by Indian seafarers. Many of them could be the product of Indian Maritime University. Ladies and gentlemen, just for a hypothetical scenario, if the vessel is coming, this particular Irina is coming from, say, Antwerp or Bremen to Kochi, carrying around 15,000 nautical miles in maybe 1,500 nautical miles in, say, around 15 to 20 days. But once it reached Kochi, from Kochi to take these containers, 24,000 containers, to Coimbatore, just maybe 200 kilometers away, you will need 24,000 trucks. If you see in the road, it could be 60 miles in length. And each of the truck directly and indirectly involve at least 4 people. That means you need around 1 lakh people to transport these containers from Kochi to Coimbatore, just 200 kilometers. On the other hand, all the way from Antwerp to Kochi in the high seas, these containers were brought by just 21 seafarers. That is what the shipping is all about today. And hence, I place the next challenge before you, ever decreasing manning of the ships. Some of you who have sailed on a ship must have sailed on ships with 50 to 60 people on board. But today, a normal cargo ship is maybe 17 to 18. Recently, I happened to visit a Norwegian ship manned by just 5 people on board, 4 officers and 1 cook, and the 4 out of 3 were dual certified workers. So that is going to be the trend of the tomorrow. So that is going to be a challenge for the maritime faculty also, how to counsel, how to train, how to re-engineering our people, not only for maritime technological centers, but even for the mental wellness to sustain in such isolated situations. Next, I come to a novel, Don Robertson's 1965, The Greatest Thing Since Sliced Bread. I don't know, any one of you might have read this, but it's about the East Ohio's Cleveland LNG disaster of October 20, 1944, where a mere 90 cubic LNG container just exploded in the night, just wiping out the entire city. Just imagine, just a 90 cubic LNG tank. Compared to that, the QMAX series of LNG carriers today, carrying 160 million cubic meters of LNG, coming right into your town, right into your city to deliver it for your household. In other words, LNG tankers are floating bombs. The East Ohio gas explosion is calculated to equal around 2.43 TNT or TNT, or 1/6 of a Hiroshima atomic bomb. On the other hand, the energy content of a single standard LNG tanker of 125 million cubic meter is equivalent to a megaton of TNT, or about 55 Hiroshima bombs. And if I quote Boston Mayor Thomas Menino, I quote, "The attacks on September 11, 2001 came from the sky, but the next terrorist attack on United States could come from the sea, like the one on USS Cole in October 2000 in the form of an enormous liquid natural gas tanker. LNG carriers are perhaps the single most dangerous substance routinely playing in our coastal waters and coming into our ports, the floating nuclear bombs," unquote. Ladies and gentlemen, being a technical person, knowing how the safety concerns of the LNG carrier are addressed, I perhaps do not endorse the views of Mayor Thomas Menino, but we cannot neglect the public perspective on the matter. So I place before you the third issue, the changing cargo profiles of our ships. Of decades, we used to think the tankers are the most dangerous or most alarming ones, whether it is Prestige, whether it is Erika, whether it is Exxon Valdez, you name it. But are the tankers the real risk of today? I doubt. 25th May 2025, on Sunday, the MSC Elsa 3, a Liberian flagged cargo vessel nearing 3 decades of service, slipped beneath the waves just 14.6 nautical miles off the Kerala coast, hauling with it more than 640 containers, among them 13 packed with hazardous chemicals and over 450 metric tons of marine fuel. Ladies and gentlemen, in addition to 13 containers of hazardous cargo, including calcium carbide, a wide range of cargo, including plastic pellet, wood, spinning machines, polymers, cotton, fishing oil, tea, quicklime, cashew nut, and Brazil nut washed ashore, creating a real havoc in the coast of Kerala. An estimated 66 tons of plastic noodles washed ashore, with some beaches having very high pollution index value. Noodles, which absorb toxins and are mistaken for food by marine animals, pose a long-term threat to the food web. The cleaning was going on even today. But is it an isolated case? Just see, June 9th, just a few days after that, 2025, at 9:50 hours in the morning, 44 nautical miles from Kerala, Singapore flagged a container vessel, 15503 witnessed a container explosion, resulting in significant fire on board, engulfing the entire vessel. Ladies and gentlemen, the Indian Navy and the Indian Coast Guard, coordinated by the DGS, launched a swift and large-scale search and rescue operation, deploying warships, patrol vessels, Dornier aircraft, and helicopters, successfully rescuing 18 out of 22 crew members on board the ship, and 4 innocent seafarers lost their lives. And the ICG led the intensive firefighting and cooling operations, went on for several days, involving multiple ships and aircraft, successfully containing a massive blaze, especially given the vessel was carrying hazardous cargo and fuel. Just imagine it happened on the coast of India, which comparatively had the great level of preparedness or the great level of maritime support system. But if it has happened in many other places in the world, it could have been even larger disaster. So, ladies and gentlemen, I place before you the fourth concern, the changing risk profiles of ships, not the cargo alone, the changing risk profiles of the ship. If you think that the LNG carriers or the oil tankers are the biggest challenge of today, I feel you are mistaken. That is why former IMO Secretary General Efthimos Mitripoulos says, seafarers are the custodians of our high-value assets. And he replaces some valid question before the community. Do we want our high-risk, high-value ships to be run by personnel rejected by other countries, other industries? Doesn't the shipping industry deserve a competent crew to operate our ships and the very best talents to manage them? In other words, that is why we need a maritime ecosystem that not only ensures competent seafarers, but also inviting and inspiring future generations to join this noble profession. Ladies and gentlemen, as faculty members, your role is not going to end in the classrooms delivering your knowledge to them, but the important thing is to make this industry, make this profession inviting and inspiring future generations. Unless the proper talent do not come to this field, it is a disastrous consequences for the society at large. Then I come to the fifth issue, the disruptive technologies. Ladies and gentlemen, the past, perhaps the last decade, belonged to the environment. So many environment regulations, so many other measures to protect the environment. But I believe the next decade is going to be for the technologies. This decade is perhaps a moment of choice. Which future will we choose? Ships of this today are technological marvels, condition monitoring, remote control, onboard automation, operation optimization, decision support system. It is truly, truly technological marvels. And if you are talking to the future generation, they will be talking in different words: machine learning, data cluster, artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, big data, and many other things which may not have heard by the earlier generations. So, and then I come to the sixth challenge, the climate emergencies. EEDI, EXI, CIA, carbon levy, ETS, FEBATE, you do not know how the next generation is going to be in panic with this kind of environmental regulations which are coming every day. And so complex and much more than what you have done in several decades in the past. Hydrogen, methanol, biofuel, fuel cell, e-fuel, nuclear, what not could be the fuel on the ships. I can simply sympathize with the chief engineers of next day because he is no more going to enter a simple engine room, but a missionary space of a huge chemical factory itself. That is what is going to be the future. So, should you be panicked, learned faculty members? I feel not, because you are not simply making the manpower, you are making competent manpower, including competent seafarers. Competence of a seafarer differs from his training and education. While education is a process with uncertain outcome, training is an engagement with desired outcome. On the other hand, competence is the outcome of his ardent life in the high seas and performance on board, supported by the training system. Technology may keep emerging, evolving, fading, and disappearing for the new ones. But the structured training, competency-based examination systems, and above all, experience and exposure hardened at sea will always remain with these competent people. And they will simply adapt to any environment, any system which is going to come in future, provided that the fundamentals are strong. And that is where the main role of our faculty members in the pre-C comes from the picture, to make them conducive, make them adaptive to the future, not to make them completely perfect in every sense. Because nobody knows what is going to be the scenario tomorrow. No curriculum can define and expect what is going to be in the next generation shipping. What we can do at the minimum.
University, and they are all still getting 5-star employee satisfaction. But there will be differentiating factors in terms of revenue. What kind of policies are shipping? What kind of marketing strategy are they adopting? It really lets them get into the nitty-gritties of a particular business and run it as well as the decision maker directly. And you as an educator will have access to all of this on the dashboard as well. With students taking
Please, I don't know. Let me
but that's
complete.
not all. Like
Let me
you as an
complete the
educator
presentation, please.
need to piece this entire experience together in a debrief as well, right? Like this needs to tie back to the concepts that we're teaching. To do that, we actually have a lot of material as well. Like for instance, there are
Am I?
Yes, sir, you can continue, sir. Sorry, sir. Sir, you are muted now.
What was the issue? I couldn't get you in between. There was something. This one?
Yes, sir. I think some other person was just. No problem, sir. Please continue, sir. Sorry, sir.
Is it okay? Visible?
Visible, sir. Visible. Visible, sir.
So that is what the point which I was trying to make. So this comes to who is a competent seafarer. Ladies and gentlemen, it is, in my opinion, it is a combination of three factors: the structure training, sea service, and the competent assessment. But please don't understand or please misconstrue that the competency assessment is everything. It is completely different from the objective of the structured training. Competency certification is a statutory requirement governed by the international requirements for the purely for the public safety and environment protection. As simple as that. Competency certification is not for the ship operations. It's not, not for the ship owners. Their perspective is different. It is paid by the public authorities to protect the public safety. On the other hand, our ship is going to be managed in a more efficient and productive manner is something an owner's perspective which needs to be addressed through the training. And when the new ships are coming and new technologies are evolving, the fundamental requirement is through the structured training. You have to be dynamic and be adaptive with that. Please don't get confused with the competency examination regime, which is purely limited only to public safety and environmental protection. It does not or need not necessarily make a full-framed competency seafarer unless the training with a larger canvas is taken in its true spirit and definitely a minimum required exposure to the hardened sea life. So this is what the relationship, I believe, between the competency examination and the training and maritime examination. But if you start thinking that your training is for the competency assessment, you are again failing your dear students there. Because your objective to make them adaptive for the future ships, the future environment, future professional, as a professional and as a competent professional. On the other hand, competency assessment just sees whether he has got the minimum understanding and awareness regarding the safety required not only for him, but for this public as well as the environment. And from there, the competency examination, since I happen to be the chief examiner for quite some time and have been engaged as the examiner for maybe 20, 25 years now, I must say that the competency examination somehow has been taken as a more as emotional connect rather than a pure statutory requirement, particularly when people like me and many others believe what I am today or what many of us today are primarily based on the certificate of competency which we have earned through our hardships. And naturally, the biggest villains become the surveyors or the examiners, because their profession is something which they cannot make everybody happy at every time. But definitely, I feel the examination has got a much larger personal or the professional environment. Like this was taken maybe years back when I was doing my class 1 examination. And the examination days are not only times of focusing surveyors, making fun of them and laughing at yourself, but also for making friendship. Because today, if I have got connection with any shipping company, perhaps in anywhere in the world, it is because of the connections or the relationship which built through these kind of days. I have been recently sent a book by one of the marine engineers, Sridhar, and he narrates the entire journey of him as from a student to become a marine engineer. Why I put the slide here is that of which one chapter he entirely talks about the day on his class 1 examination. From the minute he came out of his home, traveled to the office and went through the examination and how he cleared it. It is much more than a defining moment of his life. And if it is for him, maybe for many of us, it will be like that. And if the surveyors or the examiners were the main antagonists for us examining, just see the dedication from that engineer whom I never saw the face after the examination. On behalf of all Class 1 engineers, I thank Mr. Ajith Sukumaran for his support and for being role model for many of us. I do not endorse his views as a role model, which I feel has got much larger perspective in maritime context. But if an examinee who has passed or failed from the examination can look back to at least a few of the surveys with this kinds of reference, I feel the examination has got some kind of personal connect as well. If you really define the future maritime training and education, I may also quote IMO Secretary General as you domain years. While compliance with its standard is essential for serving on board ship, the skills and competence of seafarers and indeed the human element ashore can only be adequately underpinned, updated, and maintained through effective maritime education and training. And I think that says all. But I will be failing my duty if I do not touch upon a real issue of today. Number 7, fragmentation of global institutions. On January 7, 2026, United States forces seizure of the Russian-flagged oil tanker Marinera in the North Atlantic Ocean. And the court for the reason for our seizure was the Article 87 and 92 of UNCLOS, arguing that on the high sea, a ship's subject only to the jurisdiction of their claim. And in this particular case, it is a stateless or flag of convenience or false flag. And under Article 110, stateless ships are subject to boarding by any nation. That was the argument put across by US for arresting this vessel. On the other hand, United States was not even a party to UNCLOS. And is it an isolated case? No. Sophia, Savan, Skipper, Drona, seized in international waters by US Coast Guard. Tagore, intercepted and administratively immobilized by the French Navy in the Mediterranean. The Kafa, formerly seized by Sweden after being detained at the port. And Kafa, again, and if you're seeing on June 14, 2026, UK Royal Marines and at the National Crime Agency seized MV Smith-Ross, a Cameroon-flagged vessel in English Channel, allegedly for carrying sanctioned Russian oil. British authorities arrested the captain, Captain Ajith Pant, an Indian national, facing a substantial prison sentence of up to 10 years under United Kingdom maritime laws. So what about India? Are we falling back? No. Stella Ruby, Asphalt Fault, Al Jafisa, 3 vessels were intercepted by Indian Coast Guard approximately 100 nautical miles west of Mumbai in the Arabian Sea for violating international sanctions. Following their arrest by Indian coastal authorities, the ships were placed under state custody of Mumbai coast. The Bombay High Court stepped in order to repatriation of nearly 50 crew members who had been abandoned by their overseas owners under harsh conditions. And during the monsoon a few days back, the anchors of the detained vessel dragged, forcing the Indian Coast Guard to launch emergency stabilization and salvage missions. While empty Stella Ruby and empty Asphalt Star were successfully secured by emergency towing vessel, the unmanned empty Al Jafisa drifted and ran aground of Monroe. So, gentlemen, for decades we used to think that the UNCLOS is paramount law for the maritime sector. Unfortunately, it is getting dysfunctioned every day. Not only that, I'm seeing a world where the UN will increasingly be paralyzed by vetoes and will become and deemed irrelevant, leading to a shift from universal security to reliance on regional alliance. WTO will become dysfunctional, escalating tariff wars and economic fragmentation. Major powers will openly defy international court rulings, signaling a shift from rule-based order to power politics. Major donors will withhold funds, causing significant operational budget gaps in environment and humanitarian missions. And the world will shift towards a multipolar, fragmented system dominated by regionalism rather than centralized global regulatory frameworks. This is the unfortunate scenario which many people envisage. In other words, today's rule-based world order may disappear soon. And that is a time the world looks for leaderships because the industry is confused. And that is where the true leaderships come to the picture. Let me take to COP26, Conference of Parties 2026. It was marked by processions and the ramage across the places. But one statement from one of the countries in the world stood apart, India, and its commitment. That non-fossil fuel energy, it's called the Panchamrita commitments, and says that the fossil fuel energy will capacity by 500 gigawatt by 2030, and 50% of its energy requirements will be from renewable by 2030, and the carbon emission reduction by 1 billion tons by 2030, and the carbon intensity of its economy will be more than 45%, reduced by 45% by 2030. In other ways, net zero by 2070. It's a very bold statement for a country like complex country like India, but it was not followed as a just political mission, but followed by a series of ardent efforts across the country. National Solar Mission, Green Hydrogen Mission, Methanol Economy, Hadith Sagar, Maritime India Vision, National Biopolicies, the Amrita Kal Vision 2047. And the results are also there to see for us. The emission intensity, our promise was to reduce it by 45% by 2030, but by 2025 itself, it was achieved 37%, and saying that by 2030, instead of 45, it will reach around 47 to 50%. 50% of the cumulative power capacity we have promised to be from the renewables, but 2025 itself, we have achieved 57%. And by 2030, it may be somewhere around 60 to 67%. And as per the CCPI report of 2023, we are the 5th performing country in the world, and best among the G20 countries, and best among all large economies. In other words, India is on track to meet its 2030 emission targets. And ladies and gentlemen, if you thought, or if many of you believe or think that we are still in the old India phase, it is not correct. We are in a new maritime India with a land of opportunities, fastest growing major economy, fourth largest in the world by nominal GDP, and the third largest by purchasing power parity. Most resourceful country with 64.3% of the population falling under working age group, of which 30% comprising of the children, the product coming to you for development. And the world's largest and arguably one of the most stable democracies. Our roadmap for the future of the Maritime is also clear through documented vision documents, Maritime India Vision and Amrit Kal Vision 2047. And the land bark legislation, Merchant Shipping Act 2025, Coastal Shipping Act 2025, Indian Port Act 2025, Bill of Lading Act 2025, Carriage of Goods Act 2025. We are in a revolutionary mode as far as regulations are concerned. And it is not the mere regulations, it is a unique financial opportunities as well. Inclusion of the large ships in the infrastructure status, the credit note program for ship recycling, Maritime Development Fund, revamped shipbuilding and assistance fund, including the research and development, and over $8.5 billion are placed on the table by the government exclusively for the maritime sector. And with the ports, the inland water sector, the shipbuilding, the ship recycling, green shipping, over 1.5 trillion is going to be the investment in coming decades. And the ships and the future of India is bags full of opportunities. Green shipping and digitalization, shipbuilding repairs and recycling, ports and inland water repairs. And if I quote our Prime Minister himself, there is opportunity to discover, opportunity to partner, opportunity to progress. Come to India and explore these opportunities. India also offers the maximum growth in scale, growth in ambition, growth in results. Come to India and be a part of our growth story. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me conclude with the clear statement that the Maritime faculty's vision is not for the ships or seafarers alone. It is for the maritime country. And your role responsibilities as being the architect of the future is much more larger and much more serious than what many of you think. And ladies and gentlemen, your job is to not to create people for running ship or building ship, but to create leaders for the maritime sector. And our shipping sector has never been short of such great leaders. And maybe it's Kishore Rajvanshi of the fleet management, or B.S. Tikka of executive ship management, or Rajesh Unni of Synergy, or Jay Raj of Ocean Sparkle, or even Thomas Pinto of Seven Islands. These are the people who have created the world from nothing. They were just seafarers, and from there, they made industries as leaders, giving employment and opportunities to thousands. That is why I said, for me, they are the role models, not the government officers or somebody else. These people who generate the industry for the next generation are the real heroes. And the role of a maritime university is to build such leaders. So, ladies and gentlemen, be proud to be a teacher. And at the same time, be proud to be associated with one of the lead universities in the world. And definitely proud to be an Indian. And this is the end of my presentation. Thank you very much. But I think for the sake of completion, I may just touch upon a few words on something close to my heart, which is beyond my maritime, mandate. It is the women in maritime. Settlement 6 March 2021, MT Swarna Krishna was manned entirely by young women of our country. And if it was the only thing, we are not knowing the full history. When the first ship Jal Usha was launched by the Cynthia Navigation, you must remember Sumati Moraji of Cynthia Steam Navigation Company, known as the first woman of Indian shipping and the first woman in the world to head an organization of ship owners, INSA. She was awarded Padma Bhushan the second highest civilian honor of India in 1971 for her civil service. And most of the time, the question which has come to me is that how safe is a ship for women seafarers? The answer is from myself. My wife was the lone lady on a ship with me for around 7 months. And once he has told, he has never felt so safe anywhere else. Why should she feel unsafe? When the ships built with the best technologies, operated by the competent manpower, surrounded her by 2021 medically fit brothers, why should she feel unsafe? Similarly, I can tell you with full confidence, for the young seafaring women, the ship at the high seas is the safest place on earth. And the next question is that can a woman survive as a seafarer on board? Ladies and men, just see our rural India. Our women are their resourcefulness and resilience are our backbone. Their strength and determination are our signatures. Their empathy and compassion are our morals. And these women are the backbone of rural India, playing vital roles as farmers, entrepreneurs, caregivers, and community leaders. Their work in the field, their toil under the scorching sun and freezing cold, showcases their indomitable spirit and an unwavering commitment to providing sustenance for their families and contributing to the nation's productivity. And if you think that the seafaring world is only for men, just see this picture. What is the skill he's talking about? It is not about whether you are a man or woman. It is about your passion, skill set, and the size of your maritime heart that makes you a successful seafarer. Thank you very much, and Jai Hind.
The session is open for discussion. Any questions, please? Across other campuses, please, you can raise your questions or any doubts.
Yeah, good morning, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, good morning, sir. Myself, Captain Patak, sir. Just one question. You talked about green energy. So, how far Indian shipping is ready for this green transition?
You mean the green shipping, I mean the shipping industry, or you mean the country as a whole?
No, only with respect to shipping, sir.
The shipping, yes. If you're talking about the new requirement from the IMO, the net zero framework which you are talking about, the entire coastal fleet is exempted. That means of the 1,400 plus ships under the Indian registry, almost 900 plus are straight away exempted from that. Then again, around 5,000 and below ships, even if they are on international voyage, are exempted. So if you're seeing the total number of ships which are getting affected by the IMO regulations in the green part is around 14% or 200 plus ships. So that is what is going to be the impact of the vessel in number. Now, whether they are ready for it, that again is another question. How you want to be ready? If you want to use, you are talking about the net zero framework and the fuel there. It has got 2 levels for the compliance. And our assessment is that around 20 plus ships could be moved towards green fuel straight away. And the rest, almost 90% would move to partly to biofuels, which makes more than 90% of the total fleet coming to at least to the lower level of the proposal. Now, regarding the technology development, see, we are lacking the technology. We are lacking the technology for the ships, but it is not that the technology is not available. Technology is available globally. So what our objective should be to get that technology transferred to us in a more affordable manner, more pragmatic manner for our industry. And I think if that is the initiatives from that, this is not a challenge which we cannot absorb. I feel every regulation, every changes come with some kind of challenges. But your smartness is how to turn these challenges into opportunities. And with the commitment from the government today, for example, the MNRE, when we are talking about the net zero transition, MNRE led by 7 lead producers of the green fuels in the country directly met the Secretary General when he came to India and assured them that the green fuel will be available for less than $1.5 per kg by 2030, which in other words means the transition fuels or the fuels like green methanol could be available somewhere around $600 to $700, or maybe even green ammonia could be available for around $400 to $500, which is a realistic figure which they project. And if that is done, we are much, much better position as far the green fuel production are concerned, even with China. We need not worry why the technology has developed here and there. Ultimately, the cost that matters. If you are able to give at a price which is competitive, no matter who is the first runners, they will be the winner. So we have got inherent advantages, and I feel if the government is consciously targeting it on that, capitalizing on that, definitely we have got a great opportunity ahead.
And sir, thank you, sir, for this. And one more question related to this. Our shipyards, they are building ships. So in the order book, what they have, so are they prepared for these next generation ships, or are they building next generation ships, our shipyard, Indian shipyards?
See, the thing is that straight away if you are asked, our shipyards are ready, I don't say yes. Because there are shipyards who are building for the Europe and it is given with the technology which is given by them. But the fact is that almost all the shipyards are running full as of now. So they have to find alternatives if they have to be in the market. And in my understanding and my reading, India is one of the most promising centers for the shipyards, and there is great number of new greenfield shipyards are coming up in the country with the collaboration with the lead maritime nations in the world, which I believe they are coming to us out of choice, because the capacity is over because of the demographic reasons as well as the geographical reasons. So they have to look for new places. Definitely India will be one among them. So our shipyards today, if your technology is self-sufficient, I say may not be. They will be able to construct the ships to the requirement of the abroad, provided the technology is provided to them. That is my take on that.
Thank you, sir. One more question. Sir, related to this emergency response, Van High and ELSA, what we saw in the presentation. So was India ready at that time, or it took a lot of time for the rescue operation?
Yes, that is absolutely a point which you are making. See, the emergency response is different from salvaging or the subsequent response to a vessel eventuality. The emergency response, the time matters more than anything else. In this case, MSC ELSA since I was very closely monitoring from the official capacity also. The vessel was held up more than 24 hours, just a few nautical miles away from the port which left, with no assistance, no response from the port which they left or the port which it is going to port. Believe me, these ships was going from one Indian port to another Indian port. Who are the actual commercial beneficiaries of this trade? They are first beneficiary are the ports, because these ships bring them business. Their business is dependent on the arrival and departure and safe arrival and safe departure of the ships. So they have the professional obligation to have the capacity to respond such scenarios. It is undoubted whether it is what kind of policy it is. I am not bothered about, but the fact is that a port, when it is established and inaugurated, it is not just the port. It is an ecosystem to be developed, and they should know that when the ships are, more number of ships are coming, there will be more maritime trade and there will be more risk involved, and the effect of that risk is straight away going to come to the public. So being the commercial beneficiary, the first responsibility was on the port to have the emergency response. And unfortunately, I feel unfortunately, none of the ports in India are capable of having an emergency system in case of situations like this. But probably the lessons learned from such incidents will take them forward.
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot, sir.
Any further questions?
Sir, it was very nice presentation, sir. I have an observation, sir. You didn't mention much about the scope of transshipment hub in India. That is, Vizhinjam is also coming up, and we have lots of hope as a maritime vision, the potential of Vizhinjam along with the Cochin. Can you elaborate on that? Second question.
Actually, yes, I understood what you are talking about in the new scenario. I mean, the new discussion point about the Vizhinjam. I think I had written 2 articles in one in Times of India and one in Hindu on the topic, explaining my views on that. Not as a government official, because now I am out of the government. I have the lot of freedom to express what I feel is correct. See, whether it is transshipment or whether it is a port, it is not counted its benefits merely by what directly you get from it, but from the entire ecosystem that it develops. If you see the history of any major cities in the world, whether it is Singapore, whether it is Dalian, whether it is Antwerp, whether it is Bremen, whether it is Keelung, whichever port you talk about, I mean, cities, major cities you talk about, it has all developed in and around the shipping activities. Because after all, 90% of the world trade happens through the sea and in near future as well. And I said earlier itself, the ships are not the seafarers, it is an ecosystem itself, an institution by itself. So when a port comes, whatever it could be, it develops in large scale the surrounding ecosystem, and that is how it takes the society forward. So if you are trying to miss any opportunity, whether it is transshipment or otherwise, with such kind of coastal advantage with us, if you are trying to move away from such opportunities, we are doing injustice to the next generation or the future generations. That is my take on that.
Thank you, sir.
As we come to the conclusion of today's session of the online faculty development program, it is my privilege to propose the vote of thanks on behalf of the Indian Maritime University Kochi campus. First and foremost, I express our deepest gratitude to our chief guest and resource person, Sri Ajith Kumar Sukumaran. Thank you, sir, for taking time out of your busy schedule to address our faculties here. In particular, you reminded that faculty members must continuously update their knowledge and keep pace with the rapidly evolving technology resonated deeply with all of us. As you rightly pointed out, sir, our role as educators go beyond ships and seafarers. Our responsibility expands to the entire maritime ecosystem. By driving this holistic vision, our ultimate goal is not just to train personnel, but to create future leaders in the maritime sector who are truly adaptive seafarers, capable of navigating the future with confidence. Sir, we are looking forward to your physical presence here in Kochi campus. Once again, I sincerely thank our campus director, head of departments for their visionary guidance and constant support in making this FDP a reality. A special word of thanks to IMU headquarters CTR section. Finally, I extend our heartfelt thanks to all the participants across various institutions. Thank you for your active presence, attention, and commitment to academic upgrading. Thank you all, and have a wonderful day ahead. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you.